From Roush Fenway Racing, the team announced that it will part ways with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at the end of the 2019 season, and that Chris Buescher will rejoin the organization and drive the number 17 Ford Mustang next year. Stenhouse has been a member of the Roush family of drivers for more than a decade, earning a pair of XFINITY Series titles and 2 Cup Series wins. Buescher also brought the team an XFINITY Series championship in 2015 and is currently driving the number 37 Chevy for JTG Daugherty Racing. Now, Ricky Stenhouse was supposed to be on Motor Mouse with us today, but obviously with the news of the day, he could not be here. He will be on Motor Mouse in the very near future. So here's what team owner Jack Roush had to say about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in a statement today, obviously thanking him for his time and his contributions to Roush Fenway Racing. A long tenure he had at Roush Fenway. Many thought that he was a lifer at Roush Fenway and obviously winning the races and the championships. On the reunion of Chris Buescher with Roush Fenway, here's what Jack Roush had to say. Certainly excited to have Chris back in the fold at Roush Fenway Racing. We've always been a big fan of Chris and his racing style. We look forward to having him in the number 17 as we continue to grow our program next season. So there you go. That's the basics of the news today. Nate, tell us what more you might know about the situation.
Well, on the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. piece, Marty, I called around, talked to some people today. This was not a decision that was arrived at lightly for this team. They have a lot invested in Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and vice versa. Yeah. 7 Cup seasons with this team, 2 Xfinity championships. Jack Roush took a chance on him when a lot of people didn't know about him, and they stayed with him when he crashed some cars earlier in his career. So not a decision that the team arrived at lightly, and not a decision that was made long ago. And this is fairly recent. What I was told was, as recently as early to midsummer, the team was still committed to trying to improve the number 17 and keep Ricky in the car. But I think when you look at the circumstances of Ryan Newman joining the team, making the playoffs, you look at the fact that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 7 seasons with Roush Fenway, I think he was only the top driver 2 times. And granted, there were some other names in that mix like Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth, but I think all of those factors kind of led to the decision today.
Kyle, you recently spent a lot of time with Ricky in Mississippi and in Tennessee, hanging out with him, shooting racing routes. I mean, does this catch you completely by surprise?
Totally off guard. And it has to be recent, I believe, because Ricky, at that time, his parents were moving out here, moving to Charlotte. They were closing up and finishing up some of their stuff there. When we took a tour of some of the stuff, his engine shop that his dad had built, and they were closing and selling all that stuff. So I think Ricky thought that he had a future here, and his dad talked about how close he and Jack were and what their relationship, Ricky's father to Jack Roush, and how they had both been like that guide or a mentor to Ricky to lead him through some hard times. And they both knew they had had some hard times on the racetrack. So totally, it does catch me off guard, especially this late in the season, too. It totally catches me off guard.
Just with a handful of races left. You said something interesting before the show. What may be more surprising, Buescher, making that move, or Stenhouse being released, because you feel like JTG Daugherty is going the right direction.
I feel like that Trent Owens and that Chris Buescher had made great inroads over the last 5 or 6 races, maybe 10 races. They ran up front. They got track position off of calls that Trent made. Chris got up on the wheel, made something happen at a lot of different racetracks. And you look at it and you think, okay, here's the little team that kind of can and is doing something. Yeah, they weren't in a position to win a race. I'll give them that. But when you take that team and run in the top 10, when you take that team and run up front, run in the top 5 consistently during the day, that's a big, big statement. And I felt like that he and Trent had kind of hit their stride. So when, again, this is a ripple effect, okay? Right. Jack makes a call, Ricky goes one place, Chris comes one place, and the people with the empty seat end up being JTG. The music stopped, and that's where we're at, and they've got to figure out who goes in that chair.
You brought up a fantastic point, Nate. I want to dive into that for a second. The Ryan Newman effect here, did that have an effect? Because Roush Fenway maybe had their eyes open a little bit this year to say, hey, our cars can make the playoffs.
I think unquestionably that had an effect, Marty. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. made the playoffs in 17. He hasn't made it the last 2 years. 17 is the only time he's made the playoffs with this team. Ryan Newman comes in, takes over the number 6 car, and makes the playoffs on points and shows Roush Fenway Racing that, hey, you're still a playoff organization. And this also was a team that last year took Trevor Bayne out of that car for a little while and put Matt Kenseth in it. Yeah. And Kenseth showed significant improvement throughout 18 to the point where the last couple of races, he was finishing in the top 10, nearly top 5 with that car. So I think Ryan Newman's performance this year, Matt Kenseth being plugged into that car last year and doing very, very well, probably opened some eyes. You know, the narrative was, you know, they brought in Kenseth to see if their cars were off.
See what the cars were.
And I think they may have determined, yes, the cars definitely were off. They said that publicly, but they may have also found out that, hey, our drivers that we have right now, maybe they're not able to tell us how our cars are off the way Kenseth and Newman are being.
Yeah, and look, this is a phenomenon that is new to the sport, where we have teams that don't have franchise drivers. Okay, and Steve Letarte is always using the term franchise. Jeff Gordon was a franchise driver at Hendrick. He drove that development bus. He drove that bus on what works, what didn't work. Everybody else that drove over there was a beneficiary of Jeff Gordon. When it was turned over to Jimmy Johnson, he didn't drive the bus as fast as Jeff has. Sorry. You know what I mean? And now they've got young drivers. Will those young drivers be able to move the needle on this? We see any team that doesn't have, I'll put RCR in this group too. When Kevin Harvick left, who's driving the bus over there? Who is that guy that's giving them the direction to go forward? And for me, this is a sign as the sport changes where, hey, those old guys weren't so bad after all. You know what I mean? They understood the cars.
Right.
They understood what the car needed. And yes, we live in an age of engineering where it's all in a computer, but somebody's got to set their butt in that car and hang on to that steering wheel and say, I don't care what that box says. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? And somebody has to man up and do that. And I think Newman is that driver who has done that at Roush Racing.
So that's the Roush Fenway side of things. How about the JTG Daugherty side of things? Here's what Tad Geschechter, the team owner, had to say today. We were in the final strokes of a contract when learning that Chris had gone in a different direction. JTG has appreciated all the efforts from Chris throughout the last 3 seasons. And when the dust settles, we will begin the process of searching for the next driver for the 37 car. Co-owner Brad Daugherty was on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90 this afternoon. Here's what Brad had to say.
Yeah, it totally caught us off guard because we were already building stuff for next season as everybody else does, and getting ready and preparing, and and we do our business a little bit different than a few other folks. We really drive our small consumer packaged goods product and placement stuff really, really hard with our partners at Kroger. And so, yeah, we were in the full throes of trying to put something significant together and thought we had it done and pretty close to it. And things changed just like that. This catches you off, really by surprise this late in the year, especially. You're trying to be as professional as you possibly can about how you handle these situations. I don't ever blame any athlete if he thinks he's putting himself in a situation that's going to be better for him or his family. Got no problem with that. It's just for us, it's always the timing and getting this late into the season when you have commitments, it makes it very, very difficult to swallow this easily.
I will echo what Tad Geschechter had to say in his statement. I was with him at Las Vegas, Nate, and he said, yeah, we're really close. We have a couple of sponsorship pieces that need to fall into place. He actually thought that would happen this weekend, and he felt like, I know Chris is nervous, but we're really close to a deal. So from that side of things, does it surprise you that Buescher walked away and said, I'm going to go back to where I started? It's
a little bit of a surprise, Marty, although myself and another reporter asked Chris Buescher at Las Vegas Motor Speedway Friday of that weekend during his media availability, did he know we were going to be next year? And he did indicate some uncertainty. If I would have had to bet then, I would have said he's coming back to JTG Daugherty, but he did kind of leave it open that, hey, we'll know for certain in the next couple of weeks where things stand. So I think that it's a little bit of a surprise from the team perspective, certainly. I mean, we heard what Brad Daugherty said. We heard what Tad Geschechter has had to say. And for them, that team now having to change drivers again, where they had just added Ryan Preece and taken out A.J. Allmendinger for this season, they probably were looking forward to having some continuity. We heard Brad Daugherty say, we're already building cars for next year. The rules are going to remain relatively static for 2020 before changing over in 21. So it probably is a lot more upheaval than the team was expecting.
Which leads to, Kyle, where do they go? I mean, I know you have some thoughts on this. I mean,
listen,
you just said the old guys. So.
Yeah, and I did. And listen, and I said something to Nate, and I said something to you before. If I am JTG and I'm looking to stop the bleeding and figure out where I'm at, and I'm going to go to a guy who retired earlier this year, I'm going to David Reagan, because I think David Reagan is that throwback guy. He's that guy that can lead you forward, that understands what a good car is, understands what a bad car is. He's won Cup races. He will bust his butt for a sponsor. He will move you forward. Now, is he the future of that team? Probably not. because I think he's at a place where he doesn't want to be the future of that of a team. But for a team like that to put a rookie driver in that goes out and tears up stuff and wants to win races and thinks he can do this and thinks he can do that, that can take that team and set them back a year, set them back a couple of years. I think this has to be, and everything that we do in this sport now, people, a solid business decision that moves the business forward. And because we can talk about athletes changing, trying to better themselves and go to another team all you want to, but in the end, this is a business decision for Jack Roush. It was a business decision for Chris Buescher, and it will be a business decision for JTG Racing on who they put in that car.
And the slightly good news is the free agent market this late in the season isn't completely barren. There's some things that are fluid. Daniel Suarez could be available. We know Daniel Hemrick is out there. We know now Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is out there. So there would be a few options I would think that the team might not usually have this late in the year.